Terry Boyd, artist.
Yes.
That's a loaded statement because I have seen your work and I have tried to describe it to people, and it's difficult because I've never seen anything like it. How do you describe your work?
Oh, I don't even know how I describe it. Sort of a little bit of play on sewing in a sense. Meticulous line drawings meets sort of computational embroidery. I guess that's how I would describe it in an academic setting, I guess.
Now, do you know of anybody else that is working in this particular medium?
Not really, and that's kind of what's pretty exciting for me, that there's, it is challenging because you don't necessarily have the, I guess, the idols or the mentors that you'd be looking up to who are very experienced within this medium, but at the same time, sort of that lack of a path is really, it's really exciting and I don't know, sort of promising in a sense.
So you begin by sketching.
Yeah.
Pen and paper, essentially.
Yeah.
And so you have sort of an abstract piece there, pen and paper. And then what happens with that piece?
Okay, yeah. So with that pen and paper piece, it's pretty simple in a sense. It's just sort of all these singular lines that move across a page from left to right, top to bottom. And it's supposed to be very clean and very subtle and minimal. But what I'm trying to do and what I'm interested in doing is sort of uploading this analog image to a sort of a digital embroidery machine and sort of see where the computer misjudges or misinterprets a lot of my like very delicate aesthetic mark making and see what it outputs in terms of embroideries. Because I've had a lot of people sort of compare, this is even before I was sort of interested in working in threads, that these tiny little line drawings, they almost resembled sort of stitch lines. So I was very curious how an embroidery machine would interpret its like a drawn version of a stitch and what the outcome would actually be.
Do you find that it's usually very close? It's very divergent?
No, it's usually completely thrown off, and I'm kind of excited by that. Like I sort of found originally that whenever I was doing these meticulous little line drawings, that whenever I would try to document it for either my website or sending to galleries and submissions, that a lot of information and data was being lost whenever it was converted into sort of this this digital image. And I was very curious what the printed version of that digital image would look like whenever it's sort of taken on a more untraditional media route.
So then what comes out is a actual sort of sewn or woven piece.
Yeah.
Very colorful, a lot of threads, there's a lot of texture, which is in some ways a synthesis between what you have done by hand and the computer's interpretation of that.
Yeah, but that bow is actually one of my primary mark making tools. I usually attach a tethered piece of yarn to the arrows, and I shoot it back and forth in a large space between multiple pieces of fabric as some sort of allegory to this very I don't know, personified masculine sewing technique. So it's this nice little juxtaposition between something that's supposed to be very nurturing and comforting and warm, you know, sort of the sewn aspect of clothing, and then this provider, hunter, very sharp, violent, piercing action.
Now, let's review that for a moment. Because here I sit halfway into my martini. Let's go back. Whereas most artists...
You'll need to finish it to fully understand it.
A lot of art, so a lot of artists will use paint and canvas or a palette brush on canvas, but what you are doing is tying thread to an arrow,
correct,
shooting it at your canvas.
As if that arrow was one very large sewing needle.
And then you go back and forth. So it's like a giant sewing needle in the form of a bow and arrow is your paintbrush.
Correct.
It's a little dangerous.
It's definitely dangerous. Yeah.
It's got a flair of the dramatic, and here I'm a little on edge because over my right hand shoulder here there is this installation. Good thing I wasn't standing there. When you shot this. You had a very successful opening night of the gallery here.
Yeah.
And
a little different.
Yes. Tell me a little bit about that.
So I hired a tattoo artist for the night where he was giving out free one-of-a-kind original line drawings of my actual artwork on people's bodies during the opening reception.
installation pieces for you. If I wanted something like this, could we do something where I was like, come over and just shoot my wall?
Yeah, absolutely.
And however it ends up is the artwork.
That's actually how it goes. And I even have one of these paintings right here that has sort of an arrow attached to it, but there's sort of a little asterisk on the piece it's not certified as an actual piece of artwork, even if somebody buys it, unless it's hung in their house and one arrow is actually shot through the painting and into their wall.
So it's not done.
It's not done.
Wow. I imagine that chance plays a big hand in your work.
That's a very large role sort of in my body of work. I'm sort of excited by the uncertainty of how an aesthetic can go, and I like to either let my materials do a majority of the work, and I sort of sit back as maybe an artistic director or a creative director, and I curate sort of like these very specific moments and decisions that sort of complete the object.
Maybe for an installation, do maybe like a William Tell sort of thing.
I wanted to have apples at the opening, but Cindy thought that would have been a little bit too,
and then you could give away the arrow and say, "This is the arrow that did not kill you." Signed, Terry Boyd.
$10,000.
Right.
You're welcome.
But what is your hope that this piece invokes when we stand before it?
I don't know, a little bit of danger and a little bit of uncertainty. And,
I get that, Do people typically hunt rabbit and squirrel with a bow?
Maybe about 300 years ago, but not today.
Well, I think that's an awful small target. I think pick a bigger target, you might be more successful.
Absolutely,
Like a canvas, for example, which you've mastered. I have not had the courage as of yet to get a tattoo. And I'm especially afraid to get a tattoo with a lot of lines because somebody might mistake it for stretch marks.
I didn't tell Cindy I was going to make this until maybe the week before the opening, so she wasn't necessarily expecting it, but I kind of wanted that little bit of raw edginess to it.
Yeah, and it is always, good manners that if you're going to shoot 12 arrows into someone's wall, you might want to let them know first. Yep.
It adds a really cool story for people to tell. These are beautiful, interesting objects that are very unconventional.
Well, right, because if I had this in my parlor room, I mean, of course, everybody's first question, well, what happened here?
Yeah, right.
And is everyone okay?
I guess it was, I don't know, my mom never let me buy a bow and arrow as a kid.
This is all about revenge.
This is all revenge.
We're getting really deep into your psyche. That was good on the fly. That was really very good. I know you weren't. We don't plan anything here. It kind of takes you by surprise, kind of like an arrow coming at you with a string tied to it.
Luckily,
boom.